ukulunga kipondo letu. Nkosi sikelele I Afrika, kina bantwano bayo, kokele inkokeli zayo, yanike ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Very good morning to our honourable members and guests in this hybrid sitting. I would just like to remind you all on some logistics. Today we'll be using the hybrid sitting, and I trust that everybody who is in the hybrid sitting is being connected to Microsoft Teams. Our sitting today will be conducted in terms of the standing rules and directives issued by the Speaker on the 17th of April 2020. Those that are present, all that are present both in the chamber and on Microsoft Teams, have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Please note that any members who are considered to be out of order will have their microphones muted and called to order. Just to remind you that the standing rules apply. In instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. For those members who are online, please use the raised hand function in order to be heard. I do note that the media may have been granted access to Microsoft Teams, and to any guests and media, I request that you do not show your video camera or switch on your mic during the proceedings. Any of you who would like to participate in and listen to other languages, please access language translation services via the second device, meaning your cell phone. And as ruled by the presiding officer in the sitting on the 23rd of April 2020, no interjections shall be permitted during the debate. In this regard, I'd like to draw the attention of honourable members to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Thank you very much. I will now ask Mr. Pochenpoel to read the first order of the day.
Vote 10, Transport and Public Works, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pochenpoel. I recognise the Honourable Minister Madikizela.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier and my cabinet colleagues, the leader of the official opposition and all leaders of other parties, honourable members of the Provincial Legislature, Director General and officials of the Western Cape. Deputy Speaker, I would like now to just switch off my camera so that the audio quality can improve. Deputy Speaker, it would be easy and even understandable to devote a significant amount of this time of the House during this budget cycle complaining about the difficult economic times we are in. Difficult times made even more challenging by the wide-ranging demands of the pandemic. But Deputy Speaker, these difficult circumstances are a given and are often beyond our control. How we respond as a government is not a given and is very much within our control, particularly if we keep cool heads and make responsible, consulted decisions based on facts. It was Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors, who pointed out that in times of flood, there are no prizes for predicting rain. Prizes go to those who build arcs which rescue people and enable society to move forward. My focus will today be on a few of these arcs. But first, let us look at the financial resources we have in our disposal as a department. Deputy Speaker, the 2021-22 budget for the Department of Transport and Public Works totals 9,265 million. This is an 8% increase on the adjusted budget for 2020-2021. For 2022-23, the budget is scheduled to be reduced to 8,636,000,000 before being increased marginally for 23-24 to 8,891,000,000 rands. The 2021-22 budget is made up of the following receipts. Equitable share makes 44%, conditional grants 24%, departmental receipts 21%, financing, asset financing reserve and provincial revenue fund 11%. Deputy Speaker, it is important to note that the small percentage increase over the last year's budget relates mainly to once-off allocations that do not contribute to the infrastructure maintenance capacity of the department during a time when infrastructure is to play a key role in any economic recovery. This is aggravated by the failure over time of the budget to keep up with the normal inflation, thereby further reducing funds available for infrastructure maintenance. For a program perspective, given the importance of maintaining and expanding a safe road network, it is not surprising that Program 2, which is transport infrastructure, is allocated 41% of the total budget. Program 4 and 5, which is transport operations and transport regulations, contained allocation to ensure that we are able to build on recent technological advances aimed at expanding the reach of our traffic services in the capacity of the integrated transport hub, which has attracted great interest from national agencies as well as from the other provinces keen to draw on our ideas and experience. Deputy Speaker, the American leadership guru John Maxwell is credited with saying, I quote, that a budget tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. This, of course, illustrates a crucial difference between the way in which budgets are drawn up and managed in the Western Cape, as opposed to other parts of South Africa, where massive allocations are made for projects and services which do not materialize. On the basis that in the Western Cape money goes where this government plans it to go, I would like to focus briefly on a number of activities of this department. Deputy Speaker, in 2021-22, the top 18 projects in the road space alone, which my department plans to put out on tender in the near future, have an estimated value of 3 billion rands and an expected spend in 2021-22 financial year of 819 million rands. In this financial year, my department is due to spend over 4 billion rands on infrastructure and as an implementing agent of education and health, a further 2.9 billion rands. This is a massive contribution to the economy, to an industry under pressure, and to the creation of work for our residents, Deputy Speaker. From an employment perspective, projects put out by my department in the current financial year created over 7,500 jobs, despite the fact that this period coincided with the most extreme form of lockdown, and most projects had to be shut down for at least part of that time. I've asked my HOD and head team to also embark on a process of identifying various partnership and financial models which can move us away from the conservative traditional approach to the planning, packaging, procurement, and financing of infrastructure projects. I hope to be able to report more fully on this development in the near future. Because, Deputy Speaker, we have to make sure that we use the limited resources that we have to leverage for more resources from the private sector. Now, turning now to public transport innovation. During the pandemic, many of the additional responsibilities assumed by various departments of the Western Cape government were entirely expected and in line with the steps which had to be taken to combat and limit the spread of the virus. So the massive task of outsourcing and managing the provision of isolation and quarantine facilities was not entirely unexpected and was logically within the mandate of the Department of Transport and Public Works. Equally, fitting out government buildings with the required health protective material was an extension of existing mandates. There were, however, also needs which arose from the lockdown and other actions which were less expected and which required for their resolution creative thinking and solutions. One of these, Deputy Speaker, was the impossible situation in which frontline health staff found themselves when the national curfew hours were imposed. My department responded by developing and negotiating a system of public transport in conjunction with minibus taxi industry through which the transport needs of medical staff could be coordinated with vehicle availability using appropriate technology. In this way, the Red Dot service was conceived and implemented. As a result, thousands of frontline healthcare workers were able to manage their crucial duties in safety and within an hygienic traveling environment. When similar needs arose to transfer patients from one facility to another, it was possible to adapt the Red Dot service into what became known as the Red Dot Light service. The successful organization and implementation of these two services required the development of a new basis of interaction with the minibus taxi industry. For this purpose, the industry was assisted to establish Umanyano Travel Services Company involving 8 regional taxi councils. A whole new way of interacting with the taxi industry has been established with significant benefits for the industry, the commuters, and our province. An indication of the success of this initiative is the number of trips undertaken and the number of passengers conveyed in the safety during very difficult times. In the third quarter of 2020-2021, over 24,500 trips were undertaken, transporting both healthcare workers to and from selected hospitals and COVID-19 positive patients or those at risk of infection to and from quarantine or isolation facilities. To complete these trips, over 1.95 million operating kilometers were traveled, and more than 111,000 passengers were transported during this period. Deputy Speaker, the success of this innovative system made a significant capacity overall with the pandemic at a time when so many vital systems were under real pressure. But the success story does not end here, Deputy Speaker. The many innovative ideas rolled out during jointly by my department and taxi industry while implementing the Red Dot system have presented all parties with an ideal opportunity to reconceptualize how this minibus taxi can contribute to provide extensive services to our commuters, but in a safer, more reliable way. The Blue Dot Taxi Pilot Project is a groundbreaking initiative which aims at improving the service quality and safety of participating minibus taxi, including a better passenger experience. To achieve fundamental transformation and empowerment of the industry, to address two of the most challenging issues plaguing the industry, namely illegal operations and violent conflict. To fundamentally shift the industry's existing economic drivers, which incentivize fair chasing, competition, recruitment of illegal operators, and route invasion. In order to achieve this goal, we have developed the necessary technology to allow the industry to shift this cutthroat competitive basis to one in which reliability, improved safety standards, and better driving are monitored and incentivized. Deputy Speaker, changes of this nature do not happen overnight. The new system, Blue Dot, named after distinguished branding, has required months of intensive negotiation, a deep knowledge of the industry, and a willingness to give and take in the interest of all parties, particularly the commuters themselves. I want to thank my officials and the leadership of the industry for their hard work and commitment to a new way of doing an important part of the business of public transport. Members will have noticed an amount of 150 million in the allocation for Vote 10 to the planned pilot, which will run until November of this year. So far, we had a successful soft launch that was held on the 4th of March, which involved all parties. 8 regional companies have been established and signed up. The in-person sign-up of 1,300 operators has commenced. Driver and operator training program have been finalized. Vehicle fit-outs, including trackers and hygiene provisions, are ready, and the purpose designs and build methodology system is already in place. Funding, contracting, and payment mechanisms are in place and confirmed. The public communication campaign is ready to go live. Deputy Speaker, given the ongoing unacceptable level of service provided to our commuters by PRASA, the Blue Dot system is a massive step forward in the provision of reliable, safe, affordable public transport. While we are busy with this important partnership, we will make sure that we work with the leadership of the taxi industry to root out bad apples who continue to intimidate and extort money from the users of other modes of transport. This behavior is totally unacceptable, Deputy Speaker, and will be dealt with, because the success of Blue Dot will largely depend on the cooperation between my department and the taxi industry to make sure that we redeem the industry and become a safe and reliable mode of transport. I want to thank the team behind this initiative, my HOD, the senior management, my office, for all the hard work that we have done to make sure that we deliver the services that is needed to the citizens of the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I recognize the Honourable Mumbi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. To the honourable members and to the people of the Western Cape, I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to decline support for the budget vote. Informed and directed by the President in his State of the Nation address, where I quote, "We announce that we'll be embarking on a massive rollout of infrastructure throughout the country. We have now developed an infrastructure investment project pipeline worth 340 billion in network industries such as energy, water, transport, and telecommunication. Construction has started and progress is being made on a number of these projects," close quote. Given that national government is taking the lead in our country's economic recovery, it is encouraging also to hear sometime from the Honourable MEC of Transport and Public Work that here in the Western Cape, he has expressed that the department is committed to being infrastructure intensive and an emphasis being placed on construction. And I hope that is actually not only just going to be mere maintenance of the infrastructure. This is encouraging coming from the MEC, especially after the MEC of Finance completely left out infrastructure in his medium-term policy statement read in October last year. But sadly, the people who must be benefiting from this infrastructure intensive program of the departments and construction development will not be benefiting, especially if the provincial government discard broad-based Black economic empowerment. If this is the case, then the question becomes who exactly will benefit from the infrastructure intensive budget and who exactly will benefit from the so-called economic recovery plan of the province. We had hoped that COVID-19 pandemic will have presented a new opportunity for the provincial government, given that they have been, especially the DA has been in power for over a decade. This has been an opportunity to restructure the economy of this province meaningfully for the benefit of the majority of the people. We'll have hoped that the provincial government and the Democratic Alliance will use this pandemic to ensure that more Black people, by Black people I mean Africans, Coloureds and Indian, as well as women and young people, become full and active participants of the provincial economy, and even more so benefit from the department's infrastructure's intensive budget program. But when the provincial government and the Democratic Alliance throw race, class, and gender out of the window, not only does it become forgetful as far as history is concerned, but it's also become narrow-minded in the expansion and the restructuring of our provincial economy. The restructuring of the provincial economy must benefit the majority of the people in the province. Amidst this core function of infrastructure and development, the whole role of the department in the fight against COVID-19 has certainly come into sharp focus. While the department has initiated the Red Dot as well as the Blue Dot program, as well as providing quarantine and isolation site for the Department of Health, there should be no doubt that the officials in the department must be applauded for their effort that they have put in. This initiative from the officials, we hope that then it is also going to replicate itself into the political leadership of the province in terms of giving vision and making sure that the government does actually address the majority of the people, as this political leadership has actually been exposed as lacking, especially in this budget vote. As we've heard, the department defers completely to the Department of Health, and while we may appreciate that the Department of Health should be taking the lead in the fight against COVID-19, however, the department seem to have failed to have made the necessary provision for the next year or two. Other than the Bracken Gate Field Hospital, which will be in place for the next 3 years, the information on other intervention by the department is non-existent as far as the isolation and quarantine places are concerned. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the reality of COVID-19 third wave is inevitable, and there seems to be no clear preparations from this budget that has been presented here as to how are we going to be addressing the third wave that is actually inevitable. While of course we don't wish for a second that the third wave must come, however, it's clear that it might be worse than the first and the second wave. The department therefore cannot afford to commit the same mistake as before, and now already isolation and quarantine facility should have been identified. If the department is seized with the saving of the SMME sector, which is also something that is completely lacking in the budget of the department, this sector, it will be important that the department must make sure that opportunities are provided to SMMEs that are owned by African, Coloureds, and Indian, as well as women and youth, to make sure that they are also part and parcel of benefiting from this budget. At the same time, the department, as the custodian of the provincial immovable asset, like it must actually avail some of its movable asset to address the densification challenges that the province has actually been exposed to during the pandemic period. The province has been actually exposed as the most densely populated province, especially in the poor and informal areas. It is therefore pitiful that no movement forward has been made on the Tafelberg matter, and that only one building in the CBD is mentioned of being assessed for the possibility of affordable housing in the city of Cape Town. Given that this department itself admits that lots of opportunity will open up in the master office accommodation plan, it is also unbelievable that there have been no plan that have been immediately made to make sure that these sites actually have been made, they are available site made to the Department of Human Settlement, because sometimes when we raise the issue with the department the department always says that it is actually not responsible for human settlement. However, we would like to see and hear the department making available some of its immovable assets in the form of land, in the form of building, made them available to the department that are actually responsible for human settlement. With spatial integration, affordable housing, and the ability of public work to assist in this regard.
Member.
Apologies, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Could just
Deputy
finish
Speaker?
off.
Oh. In this regard, therefore, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I would like to call on the Minister to start actually taking a lead and making sure that the issue of integration and the issue of using space for purposes of integration of the provincial government is actually being made in full use. In this regard, we would also like to call on the MEC to consider abandoning the case of the Daftberg matter and actually not appeal this case.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member, you're way over your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call on Honourable Kleho.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Department of Transport and Public Works in the Western Cape has a duty to liaise and work with the Department of Western Cape Education, making sure that more classrooms are made available and more schools are built in the province. This allocated budget of 9.265 billion must be put in good use. The department must also make sure that the Western Cape has a safe transport system. On a daily basis, our people are being robbed of their belongings in buses and by criminals, and there is nothing the department is doing about it. The department has shown to have no solution when it comes to the taxi violence in the province. That continues to claim the lives of the ordinary people. As we speak, a number of taxis still do not have access to route permits, which result in the taking of lives and the killing of Black people that is being promoted as black on black violence by this particular department. The EFF in the Western Cape is not going to support a budget that does not protect the lives and the well-being of our people in this province, and more especially the poor. The Department of Public Works and Transport has got enough abandoned buildings standing as white elephants in all town centers in the province, where our people could be accommodated closer to their cities and workplaces. Currently, we have our people suffering from the collapsed transport system that risk their jobs, of which it already threatened by effects of COVID-19. We are appealing to the minister to consider the integration of our people, especially to those who do not qualify for RDP houses, to be accommodated by this department to address their challenges of settlement, and with the Department of Human Settlement. So as the EFF, we are surely appealing to you, Nguchana, that you must bring our people closer to their workplaces. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. And now I recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP support Vote 10 Transport and Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. And now I recognise Honourable Murray.
Thank you so much. The only contribution I want to make is that what is the department doing to prevent the vandalization of decommissioned buildings belonging to the Western Cape government, especially schools? They're being vandalized at a very fast rate. The Minister of Education decided to shut down a school, and then your department Public Works sit with their hands folded while the buildings are being vandalized, especially I noticed a building in Valhalla Park, I noticed in Elsie's River several schools vandalized and demolished. What are you doing to make sure these buildings are either transferred to another department or given to NGOs or churches, because it's taxpayers' money that's being wasted? I support the budget, but I would like the Minister to take note of the comments I've made.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is up. Thank you very much. I now recognise Honourable Brinkhays.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Rural transport remains a huge challenge for people who depend on taxis or having to hitch a lift on the back of a truck. The taxi systems lack safety and is being regulated very poorly. We must encourage taxis to become driver-owned, which will instill a sense of ownership in them and lead to cooperating with traffic rules. The industry is also hampered by a lot of gang violence and extortion rackets. The My City bus service operates 90% in historically white areas, and only a few nearby townships have been included recently. Large amounts of budgets are spent on this bus services, which is only operational in certain areas. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, members of the Legislature, I rise today to take part in the Budget Vote 10, Transport and Public Works, in the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 of 2021. Deputy Speaker, before I get into the budget, allow me to highlight the key focus areas and mandate of this department. It is clear that nearly 2 years into office, COVID-19 is undeniably the preeminent crisis of our time, and one which knows no bounds. The Department of Transport and Public Works aims to tirelessly pursue the delivery of infrastructure and transport services that is inclusive, safe, and technologically relevant. This, Deputy Speaker, is the cornerstone upon which the department and its decisions, specifically those relating to budgets, are taken. Speaker, as I turn to the budget, which has been set to just over 9 billion rand, I would like to highlight some of the most notable earmarked allocation under each sub-program. In sub-program 1.3 under corporate support, there's an earmarked allocation of just over 60 million rand for the development of an asset information system as part of the digital strategy of the department. In sub-program 2.2 under planning, an earmarked amount of 10 million rand has been allocated for planning preparation, as well as an earmarked allocation amounting to over 5 million rand for planning projects allocated from the project preparation facility for precinct planning, enablement, and mixed-use developments. If you turn to sub-program 2.3 under construction, Deputy Speaker, an amount of 24 million rand is earmarked for construction in phase 2 of the accommodation for GMT. 84 million rand in 2021-22 has also been earmarked for the construction of child and youth care centres. Deputy Speaker, I would at this point also like to welcome the department's commitment to continue to provide disinfecting services. This comes following the confirmed cases in all provincially occupied office buildings, as well as the continuation of quarantine and isolation facilities, where a need of such facilities has been identified by the Department of Health, especially in specific COVID-19 affected areas. Deputy Speaker, we welcome the rollout and delivery of the early phase of the Conradi project, and in particular, the following milestones which are expected during this financial year. The occupation of the first 2 social housing buildings from August 2021, the completion of phase 1 social housing in January 2022, the commencement of the second phase of the social housing phase, and the commencement of construction of the first second market residential building, as well as the commencement of the first school phase and the complete construction of the first building. Deputy Speaker, during this financial year, we will see the construction of an additional dormitory at the Outeniqua Child and Youth Care Centre in George, and in supporting that earmarked allocation in sub-program 2.4 under maintenance, an amount of 26 million rand is allocated to the urgent maintenance of child and youth care centres across the province, and notably the roof replacement at the Sarki Bartman Centre, which is currently underway. Speaker, if you move to sub-program 2.6 under facilities operation, an amount of 3 million rand is allocated for job creation with respect to EPWP opportunities. Under program 3.4 and 3.5, construction and maintenance, an earmarked allocation amounting to 20 million rand in the 2021-22 financial year is for service load pressure on roads infrastructure and transport that has been finalized. Deputy Speaker, the road network forms the backbone to the integration of all infrastructure in the Western Cape and ensures economic sustainability. We welcome the construction and maintenance of such projects, which stretch from the metro to all the corners of the province. Under this program, the department will continue to deliver critical enablers of opportunities to citizens as well as business through construction and maintenance of safe, efficient, and accessible transport infrastructure. Despite the various pressures, Deputy Speaker, placed on the department, I would like to pause at the Blue Dot Taxi initiative and welcome the continuation of this pilot project. Given the safety concern and major challenges facing commuters, we support the province's pioneering assistance to the minibus industry. Furthermore, as part of the recovery plan, it aims to include the groundbreaking incentivized program, which rewards participants for compliance with set standards monitored through onboard tracking, on-the-ground monitoring, and various other mechanisms. Deputy Speaker, it is at this point that I would like to draw your attention to the reduction of funding through the public transport network grant due to the national government's fiscal constraints. We welcome the commitment by the department to facilitate a new rollout date of Phase 4A and the measures identified to improve financial sustainability of the system. In addition, the following notable allocation must also be emphasized. That in sub-program 4.2, under public transport service, an allocation of 42 million rand for the George Integrated Public Transport Network and an amount of 150 million rand for the Blue Dot Taxi Initiative program have been earmarked. Under program 4.4 transport services, an amount of 52 million rand is earmarked for the integrated transport hub. Deputy Speaker, as we all know, the rail service and infrastructure in this province is in dire straits. Trains are quite literally off the tracks. We therefore welcome the commitment by the department to continue to work with PRASA, the City of Cape Town, and other stakeholders to fix rail once and for all. We further welcome the commitment by the Premier during the State of the Province address to establish a Western Cape Transport Authority. It will be remiss of me not to condemn the thuggish behavior we have seen last year in recent attacks on the Golden Arrow bus services. I want to acknowledge the commitment by the Minister and the Department in partnership with the Golden Arrow bus service to test new technological solutions to counter attacks and bus robberies. Deputy Speaker, public transport needs to progressively connect the entire province, especially as we safely work towards rebuilding the economy. We cannot allow criminal activities to continue and criminals to be allowed to steal from our hard-working commuters who rely on these services. In the past 6 to 8 months, Deputy Speaker, Golden Arrow reported that between 6 and 7 robberies take place on their buses every week. It was also stated that the bus drivers are the intended targets of at least half of them. In sub-program 5.4 under law enforcement, and an amount of 40 million rand has been earmarked for provincial traffic, specialized skills and technology integrated into operation and the transport hub. We further welcome the continuation of 24/7 traffic law enforcement, which will see an effective traffic service to ensure safer roads in the Western Cape. This will be achieved through well-structured, effective and focus-driven law enforcement operations, as well as road safety education and awareness. Deputy Speaker, These earmarked allocations are an indication of this department's continual mission to strive to provide the best possible service to the citizens of the Western Cape, especially during a pandemic and under enormous financial constraints. Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to thank every provincial traffic officer as we prepare for the Easter period. Thank you for ensuring our roads are safe by making sure that motorists and pedestrians follow the law. I appeal to all citizens to drive safely and with caution as we approach the weekend. In conclusion, and finally, to the Minister, the HOD, every official in the Department of Transport and Public Works, we thank you for your commitment and dedicated service to the people of the Western Cape. Deputy Speaker, the DA therefore supports the bill for vote 10. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now hand over to Honourable Minister Madikizela.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to all the colleagues who have contributed to the debate. Deputy Speaker, just to quickly react to some of the comments. First, to Member Mvimbi. I've noted his point about the infrastructure investment led by the national government, and I think I would really ask Member Mvimbi to look at that SIPS plan from the Department of Public Works and the Presidency. And I would be very much like to know from him, once you look at that SIPS plan, how many projects are from the Western Cape, and you will realize that that is initially focusing in all other parts of South Africa, but not the Western Cape. And secondly, I mean, sometimes I get surprised when I hear some of the things that Member Mvimbi say and wonder whether we read the same blue book. Because it is not true that this department in particular and the Western Cape government is discarding the BEE as he said. I mean, for example, I mean, in the month of February alone, Deputy Speaker, we have awarded 288 contracts. And out of those 288 contracts, 275 were awarded to BEE compliant companies. And if you look at the value of those contracts, I mean, the value of those 288 companies is 109 million. And if you look at the value awarded to BEE, out of that 109 million, it's 105.4 million. I mean, which clearly indicates that Member Mvimbi is reading his own book, not the blue book that we all read. Or he's got his own ideas about the work that we are doing as this department. Now, again, he doesn't want to credit the political leadership for Blue Dot. Now, everything that works must be credited to officials, I mean, which is fine. I mean, because I work very well with my officials. So he doesn't want to credit this government for this initiative of the Blue Dot. He wants to credit it to officials. Well, Mr. Member Mvimbi, you must realize that this is a joint effort from the political leadership all the way to the officials. And that is why we are able to do the kind of work that we are doing. And again, Member Mvimbi make the wrong assumption that we are not prepared for the third wave. Well, again, if you look at the program 2, you will see that funds are provided for quarantine and isolation facilities. And also, if you look at program 4, funds are provided for Red Dot service. So it's a clear indication that, again, we are not on the same page in terms of understanding of what we have budgeted for and what Member Mvimbi thinks. And again, when it comes to affordable housing, I mean, you've been lecturing on this point, and I think it must be very clear here that the disposal process of land, I mean, we don't, as this department, just go around asking people who want land. The responsible department must approach us with the motivation for us to be able to dispose land or to make the land available. Let me put it that way. We have made a number of pieces of land available to the Department of Human Settlements for the inner city development. So it is not true that this department is reluctant in making land available. So, Member Kleko, again, we, of course, when you say that we have a duty to liaise with the Department of Education, the Department of Education is using this department to build schools. That happens, you know, every year. So the safety, I mean, you talk about the you're not supporting this because this department has no solution to the taxi violence. And yet, most of my speech was about providing solution to the taxi violence. And I think when the time permits, Deputy Speaker, because I wouldn't want to take time here, is for me to make Member Kleko understand the reasons behind the blue dot, because the blue dot is meant to do exactly that, to deal with the taxi violence, because the taxi violence is happening because of the instability in the industry, where people have do not have income, end up invading the routes that are seen to be lucrative, and all of those things. I mean, if you look at it will deal with that. But over and above that, Deputy Speaker, there is no transport mode that I've spent as much time as I have with the taxi industry dealing with violence. So the assumption that the department or I am failing to deal with violence is exactly that. And I don't know where Member Kleko lives, because if you look at even the report that is coming from the taxi industry leadership themselves, they will tell you that the efforts that have been made to deal with violence is commendable from this department. So, and again, if you look at the security, I mean, we have committed to work with PRASA through our rail enforcement unit, I'm sure you know about that, to make sure that we secure our passengers. We have committed to work with GAPS in Golden Arrow bus service, where we are now installing technology, Member Kleko, to the value of 50 million rands, also so that we can provide security for our passengers. So if you look at all the modes of transport, even those that are not directly our responsibility as the province, we have really been forthcoming in providing a solution to the security of our passengers, because everything we do, we put our passengers at the center. And thank you very much, Member Christians, for supporting the vote. Member Mare, I take your point entirely about more efforts being made to prevent the vandalization of the school buildings. And of course, I think if you look at how some of these buildings, I mean, they are built and they are handed over to the respective departments. It's not entirely the responsibility of this department to make sure that they are not vandalized. But I think the point is well made and taken, Member Mare, because in some instances you will find that it is the contractor's responsibility. When we replace a school, for example, you'll find that it is the responsibility of the contractor to make sure that the old school is demolished. But you would find that the people themselves, because they need the material, they will end up starting vandalizing those buildings. But again, I think the point is made, and we must have a better coordinated approach to deal with this. Member Brinkcase, I agree with you that more effort needs to be made in terms of the rural transport. And of course, this is an issue that we've been talking about for some time, because the legislation is a challenge here, and we've been engaging with our counterparts nationally to make sure that we deal with the rural transport. And I mean, your point is noted about the taxis being unsafe, and that is why, sir, we are really intervening in this space to make sure that we redeem the taxi industry so that it becomes a reliable mode of transport for our people. And I've also spoke about the issue of extortion, which you mentioned, I mean, during my speech, because I agree with you that it's an issue that we need to deal with. The issue of my city, again, it's noted, but I'm sure you understand that this department has very little powers. My city is a contract between national department and the respective municipality, which we have been from time to time, assisting to make sure that the service is restored. But again, your point is taken, sir. And lastly, I really want to thank Member Mitchell, the chairperson, for really all your hard work in making sure that the department is kept on its toes. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the notes that you've made about the efforts that the department is making, particularly as part of our efforts to create jobs, because as you know, that the Western Cape government is now focusing on 3 key areas, which is your safety, your jobs, and your wellness. And this department is playing a very important role in the job space. And of course, the road network, as you said, rightfully said. And that is why, if you look at the interest, our budget, how our budget is structured, 41% is dedicated to road infrastructure because that is where jobs need to be created and so that we can deal with the plight of our people. But overall, thank you again for acknowledging the work that is done by our traffic officers who are really working tirelessly to make sure that we deal with the challenges on our roads. And lastly, Deputy Speaker, I do want to take this opportunity and echo the sentiments of Member Mitchell to really wish everyone as we start the Easter, holidays season. And I want to urge each and every people to drive safely, to obey our roads, to make the work of our traffic officers easier during this period. And I wish all the people who will be traveling across our province and outside this province safe journey, and may you come back safe. And I want to thank HOD Gooch and her team for really coming up with innovations that are taking us forward as the department. Clive and Elizabeth and the team from my office for making sure that you provide the necessary support so that I can be able to deal with many challenges that we are facing in this province. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on this vote. Mr. Pochenpoel will now read the second order of the day.
Debate on vote 6, Health, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. I now recognise Honourable Minister Mbombo.
Deputy Speaker, can you see and hear me?
Perfectly, thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, because as well, we don't want to have the broad width to be disturbed. I will switch off my camera and then I'll come back later when I close. Thank you, Speaker.
Honourable Minister, I've lost you.
You've got me now? Sorry.
Okay. Are you doing the opening remarks?
Yes, I'm starting now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Cabinet colleagues and members of the Provincial Parliament, Chairperson of the Standing Committee, the Head of Department and Management from the Health, citizens of the Western Cape, Indwendwe, Ezilapa, including the media, Molweni, Kuninonke. Deputy Speaker, as we confront the COVID-19 global health crisis, we are strengthened by years of experience that has shown us that even when problems seem insurmountable, victory is certain. This is the reason I stand proud to deliver the budget for the people, which is about giving hope amid the hopelessness to the millions of patients we serve. Whilst COVID-19 dramatically shifted our priorities and the way we work to ensure the health of people, it did not change our mission to protect people who are at risk and safeguard the lives of frontline staff. This crisis only demonstrated how resilient our provincial health system is, In February 2020, we launched a Western Cape Burden of Disease Rapid Review, which characterized the burden of disease in the province and identify the upstream interventions for the 5 main burden of disease, namely infectious diseases, mental health conditions, injuries, cardiovascular, and childhood diseases. We were ready to roll out our sleeves through the whole of society approach and whole of government approach to tackle social determinants of these diseases. Then kaboom, 11th March came, the day I will never forget, our first COVID patient zero in the Western Cape. The rest is history, Deputy Speaker. We had to make difficult decisions about which healthcare service can be safely continued and which ones can be scaled back or temporarily halted. This led us to de-escalating services. And yes, there are backlogs in elective surgeries and some primary healthcare services that will have to be addressed going forward. And later, a year later, we were all under immense pressure, drowning in compassion fatigue, burnout. We are stressed. We suffer from insomnia, anxiety, and depression. And many of healthcare workers have lost colleagues and loved ones due to COVID. It is this reason that mental health is on the priority on the list of the non-COVID services that has to be recovered. The wellness and psychological support of our staff comes first. Deputy Speaker, this budget, I want to prioritize the following among the others. Innovation, 1, 2, public-private partnership, 3, infrastructure, 4, human resource, 5, the vaccination drive. In regard to the innovation, technology as part of our innovation is a key enabler and disruptor in doing business unusual. We build public trust by having the core markers on a public-facing dashboard that gets updated daily. This has also included the practice of being data and evidence-led. The dashboard innovation was built in-house and won awards. That's why every day you'll always get statistics from the Western Cape ever since we started with COVID services. We won the Silver Medalist Next Generation Media Award for Technical Innovation. We competed with companies in the private sector such as Vodacom and South African breweries. We won the finalist for the BCX Digital Innovation Award. We won the Africa Tech Award winner, where we use the use of technology in the public sector, and this was a continental award for the whole of Africa. Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape Government Health Emergency Medical Services, which became the first government institution in South Africa actually that allowed to fly over national key points. We launched our drone rescue project in December 2020. I'm proud to inform you that the first mission took place in Royce Else on 28th January 2021, and it involved a search for a male who jumped off a cliff into the water. The second mission took place on the 10th of Feb 2021, and it involved a 21-year-old male went off the hiking path on Lion's Head, close to the Clifton Crest route, and got stuck. The incident was logged at 10:35, and the drone located the 21-year-old male at 11:43. Under circumstances where would we have this drone, would it have been possible even to be able not only to rescue, but in terms of the time that it took. Other innovations, just quickly, is a vector project where diabetics who are at high risk during COVID-19 peak periods were, and it's actually still continuing, are preemptively identified, follow up daily, fast-tracked, and admitted at earlier signs of decompensation. This significantly reduced the mortality of diabetics from the COVID-19. The other innovation is about the delivery of the chronic medications. More than 1.3 medicine parcels were delivered to homes of chronic stable patients. This reduced their risk of traveling to health facilities. Funds have been earmarked to continue this project in the coming financial year. Remember, we might have a third wave. We have to make sure we protect our vulnerable. Deputy Speaker, the other part of the focus on this budget is a public-private partnership. This is key in our mission to preserve the patient dignity. The department has entered into several partnerships that have allowed us to provide access to much needed health services. Some examples: in the first lesson we learned from COVID-19 is that it does not discriminate. It knows no race, nationality, ethnicity, or social standing. This is the reason why I called a first meeting with the private hospitals and general practitioners in the Western Cape, which led for me to change the private health licensing regulation that enabled private hospitals to review their beds and prioritize COVID-19 beds. Western Cape was the first to complete the public-private agreements on sharing critical beds using the same critical protocols. We are resolute in not creating binaries between the public and the private. This has led to fruitful working conditions, and I'm proud of the partnership. The other public-private partnerships, Deputy Speaker, during this pandemic, there was never a time where we ran out of PPE. We were inundated with donations from companies, individuals, grocery shops, civil society organizations, foreign countries, and others. I would like to mention a few of those. The gift of the givers for their generous donation of medical equipment, including continuous positive airway pressure machines, CPAP, for several of our facilities in the Overberg and the Garden Route. The same humanitarian organization donated 10 million rands towards the renovating and equipping an entire ward in Mitchell's Plain Hospital, which is now used for COVID patients. This proves that by working together, we can ensure optimal care for our vulnerable community. We are appreciative of the additional humanitarian support in fighting this COVID-19 pandemic. I would also like to thank ShopRite and Oceana Group for their generous contribution in the cold winter season, where they donated care packs consisting of the blanket, the socks, the beanies, the scarves, hygiene packs. These came in handy to patients at field hospital, quarantine, and isolation facilities. I can go on because there are many. For example, the Adidas, where they donated the track suits and also techies to our staff. The other priority is the infrastructure. We delivered world-class infrastructure, Deputy Speaker, projects in partnership with the Department of Transport and Public Works, and will continue to maintain clean and functional infrastructure. The infrastructure projects contribute to improve access to healthcare in the province. Every single cent we spend on infrastructure benefited the people of this province. Infrastructure is one of the building blocks within the health system and forms part of our priorities as a way to address patient experience and service pressures. Our key infrastructure projects include the refurbished Swartland Hospital that was destroyed by fire. Some of the key projects actually that we deliver in the last financial year include the Vredendal North Clinic, the Chatsworth Clinic, the Abbotsford Clinic, and for this coming financial year, we have earmarked the following infrastructure: the Klepfontein Hospital, Yebo, the Joste Hospital. The tender for the provincial service providers has been advertised and is currently going through the various processes related to the tendering process. The D. Dorrance Ambulance Station Replacement Facility Project completion, the date is about the 21st of April. Thereafter, a commissioning period of approximately 2 months will take place before the facility is fully operational. The Laingsburg Clinic upgrade and additions of the phase 1 sectional completion was achieved on the 8th of December 2020 and is operational. The revised project completion of the whole project, both now phase 1 and 2, is on the 25th of March 2021. The Victoria Hospital New Emergency Center phase project completion is anticipated for the 14th of July 2021. The Tygerberg Regional Hospital, Speaker, because we did indicate that in the metro, we are focusing on 2 new big hospitals, that 2 regional hospitals, where we could be able to decant the Tygerberg Hospital and have regional, so that it remains as a central hospital. And then we have the Tygerberg Regional Hospital around there by the Bella, and then we have again the Klepfontein, which is what used to call the Joste Hospital. So Tygerberg Regional Hospital, the department is currently preparing the clinical brief. The Observatory Forensic Pathologic Lab replacement, currently the completion will be around June 2021. The Helderberg Hospital phase 3 project completion has been reached, and phase 2 to be completed once decanting is done. The other priority, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, is the human resource. Staff safety remains the biggest concern for the department, with the EMS being the most vulnerable. 70 cases ranging from robbery, assault, theft, and intimidation occurred in 2020 in 1 month alone, Deputy Speaker. July, 11 cases were opened in July. This is in the midst of a COVID pandemic. This is totally unacceptable and deserve to be condemned in the strongest and harshest terms. At the 2020 National Batubele Excellent Awards, Deputy Speaker, part of our resource, the Western Cape government received a gold award to the Department of Health. This is a significant achievement by any standard, considering that we are honored for being the best performing department in South Africa. I'm so proud of our recently retired HOD, Dr. Beth Engelbrecht, for being awarded the best performing HOD. Indeed, she deserved this honor. She was always a decisive leader who executed her responsibility with great expertise and integrity, just like as many of our staff in the department. The last part is the vaccination drive. This virus has been vicious to our healthcare workers, and 123 who died did not make it. This is tragic, and I convey my words of condolences to their families. May God continue to comfort them. The road to vaccination, Deputy Speaker, starts with a solid rollout plan and the vaccination process that gets bought by all stakeholders. Our vaccination plan is to vaccinate about 5.1 million people in the Western Cape, starting with our healthcare workers, of course, 133,000 of all categories for both public and private. I'm proud to announce that we have prioritized healthcare workers. Currently, we have vaccinated about 41,000. This is the last Friday statistics. We don't have the recent one for today. I remember vividly the excitement on their faces as the first healthcare worker was inoculated. Zoliswa Gidi Gyosi, who went on to say the reason she agreed to be the first nurse to be vaccinated is that she wanted to ensure that she's safe to protect patients and be in a position to perform her duties without fear of infecting them. The first doctor to be vaccinated, Dr. Larry from Kailicha, who said he took the vaccine because it gives hope. It is hope for the nation to recover physically and economically. He went as far as calling it the vaccine of hope. It is people like him that give us hope that this virus will finally be defeated. It is not a surprise that Western Cape was ready to implement the phase 1. I'm standing with pride to announce that the first South African vaccinee is in the Western Cape. The President and the Health Minister were also vaccinated in this province, in Kailicha, where we had our first COVID-19 case of community transmission. Speaker, community involvement in health is a crucial part of a good health system functioning and an integral part of primary health care. That's why we're committed to meaningfully engage with our communities and civil society. Immediately after the COVID first wave, I embarked on a Vulimpilo campaign, a roadshow where I engaged with facility board and clinical committee members. Sorry, Speaker, are you talking? Okay. Okay, I thought you were talking to me. Okay. About the department's strategy to bring back health services that were halted due to COVID. Unfortunately, the second wave hit us severely, and we have to shelve it once again. However, the campaign allowed me to engage with hospital board and clinical committee members and hear their suggestions and concerns. Noting, Deputy Speaker, in an ideal world for the future, we shouldn't be closing some of the non-COVID services. Ideally, our health system should be able to accommodate all other disciplines or all other diseases, because just because we are prioritizing COVID, it doesn't mean other diseases are on holiday. So that's why the community needs to be involved so that they could be able to share the information. COVID and the opportunity for social mobilization around vaccines that we're embarking upon in the next weeks to months will provide me with an impetus to meaningfully engage with communities on vaccination acceptability. We have to ensure we create awareness among our communities, especially going to the phase 2, so that they could be able to know who does qualify, or who will be prioritized, as we have done recently also when we're engaging with the women on farms, with the traditional health practitioners, and also from the faith-based organizations. Now, coming to the finances, the projected population of the province in 2021 is just over 7 million, of which 75% is estimated to be uninsured. Speaker, in fulfilling its constitutional mandate to progressively realize the right to health care, the department is committed to ensuring the provincial health system delivers high-quality care to all of the people of this province. But this budget I'm tabling now is not enough to cater to 7 million population, especially when we have the COVID, the high unemployment, poverty, and issues of safety that are prevailing in South Africa. Health, the Speaker, absorb almost all these inequalities and societal social ills. For example, the non-payment of disability grants by the social development means an impact on children with disabilities, on vulnerable adults who are on chronic medications. Speaker, a high number of unemployed people means more people cannot afford private health, not being able to pay even for some public services, which we use that money as our source of revenue. The abuse of alcohol and drugs means more trauma cases at our facilities. Yet, the National Treasury has reduced the health sector budget by almost 6%. Thank you to Provincial Treasury for blessing us to make up part of the shortfall. We have to bring in innovative ways, Speaker, to improve service delivery to the citizens of these provinces, now that we have got all these challenges about the reduced budget. But most importantly, we have to restore hope despite the shrinking public purse. Yes, under the circumstances, we will err, we are not perfect, but we must work together as a whole of society to ensure that services get to those who need them most. And unfortunately, we still have to prioritize which services are safer to bring them back, as there's uncertainty in regard to the third wave. Speaker, I want to offer my gratitude to the head of department, Dr. Keith Kluter, who started at the time when the issue of the pandemic started. And also to his top management team for ensuring that we do not let the people of the Western Cape down. I commend them for the clean audit finding for 2 consecutive years. Yes, Speaker, 2 consecutive years, the only Department of Health in the country that has ever had not only 1 clean audit, but 2. Accountable governance is crucial and reinforces public trust in the way we manage the public purse. I rest easy tabling this 27.213 billion budget, knowing that it will be treated with the utmost care and spent to the benefit of the people of the Western Cape. In regard to this 27 billion, from an economic classification point of view, the compensation of employees is about 15.6 billion, the goods and service 9.2 billion, transfers and subsidies 1.593 billion, and payment for capital assets 982 million. We do have the conditional grant funding of about 6.9 billion, which includes a COVID component allocation of 156.6 million. That's the COVID allocation from the national. Earmark priority allocations include 1.124 billion for infrastructure, which, as I indicated, Speaker, it will include the Tigerberg Hospital maintenance and the capital program. Staff wellness program, 5 million, as I indicated, Speaker, that our psychological and well-being of our staff is crucial. And also we have to, again, continue with the delivery of the chronic medication, where we are putting 33 million for that. The province has also invested in the battle against COVID. We are ready for any wave, whether it's a 3rd or 4th or 5th wave, under the circumstances where there are uncertainties, but also the issue in regard to the vaccines. 832 million has been earmarked to provide 250 million to invest in staff safety through the acquisition of the PPE, 250 million for the surveillance and the testing, because we still have to continue the testing. not only to test the people, but to surveillance in terms of using the blood to test the presence of the antibodies, and also to test the water in terms of the strains. Speaker, 332 million is invested into the healthcare platform to continue the operations of the Bracken Gate Hospital of Hope and Sonskraal for the year, and to provide relief to the central, regional, and district hospitals. Because it is crucial, Speaker, to understand that whilst people say that, oh, you have closed the city ICC, it doesn't mean that there are no other field hospitals that have opened. We opened, for example, Bracken Gate, Sonskraal, Mitchells Plain, and also some of those that are attached to the hospitals and so forth. Speaker, we have to extend the contracts, staff contracts, in anticipation of the third wave. Hence, we have to do the allocation also as part of this 832 million. Some contracts were supposed to end now, but thank you from Provincial Treasury for blessing us to be able to continue with that in anticipation of the third wave. The province has also provided the department with 150 million for vaccine implementation and procurement. The sourcing team from the Provincial Treasury and Health are already at an advance on the contingency plan to procure the vaccines when in need. The budget has been allocated to these programs. Now, Speaker, Program 1, 1.52 billion, Program 2 for district health services, 11.1 billion, Program 3, emergency medical services, 1.2 billion, Program 4, provincial hospital services, 4.1 billion, Program 5, central hospitals, 7 billion, Program 6, 360 million, which is health sciences and training, Program 7, healthcare support, is 561 million, Program 8 is health facility management, which is 1.1 billion. Speaker, in conclusion, whilst the economic climate remains a challenge, as well as challenges within the health system, as a department, we are committed to making maximum citizen impact through adding public value and improving the dignity of our citizens. We need the whole of society to ensure we keep on improving health outcomes in the province. None, of course, of this incredible work we have done will have been possible without the support of the Premier and the Cabinet colleagues, the members of the Provincial Parliament and standing committees for keeping us to account, the over 32,000 dedicated staff in this department under the leadership of Dr. Klute, assisted by top management. So support from our strategic partners, the private sector, academics, organized labor, and support of our community structures. Of course, the wind beneath my wings, my ministerial staff office for their commitment and resilience. They know that there are more than 24 hours in a day. And lastly, my pigeons, my bundles of joy for their support and understanding over all these years. Speaker, I hereby table 2021-2022 health budget of the Western Cape. Engos.
Siyabulela Nciba Nkosi Mphathiswa. Honorable Premier, honorable members, the people of the Western Cape, good morning. I now recognize the Honorable Van Vogel.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning, Speaker, Premier, Leader of the Official Opposition, honorable members, inwoners van die Wes-Kaap. Speaker, I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to decline support for the budget vote. This department is responsible for COVID-19 response, safety and well-being in the 2021-2022 provincial priorities. Important lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic include the urgent need to address the disparities and inequalities in the healthcare system, as well as the need to mitigate poverty. The MEC of Finance said the Western Cape mobilized a 2.17 billion to defeat the virus in the province. Yet none of these funds will be used to address the most pressing needs and structural challenges in our public health care system. Speaker, the MEC must tell us how much of this will be spent on filling critical vacancies. The overdependence on expensive seasonal workers is unsustainable and must stop. This department and the entire DA government is so devoted to the private sector, they are determined to enriching white-owned businesses instead of improving and re-strengthening our hospitals. The ongoing challenges in the emergency medical service are not prioritized in this budget. We have long warned the MEC and the department about the shortcoming in the EMS. All these were ignored. It is clear that the intention was to use the department as a cash cow to enrich the white-owned private service providers. In the 2020-21 financial year, 28.9 million was paid to private service providers to transport patients. Yet, in this budget, there is no allocation to capacitate the emergency medical services. The COVID-19 third wave is fast approaching, and this department, which is entrusted with the responsibility to lead the fight against this pandemic, does not have a foresight of when the third wave will hit us or what the severity and magnitude will be. It is concerning that there is no plan, no adequate preparation to spend the 116 million allocated in the third adjustment and the 832 million that is allocated to respond to possible third wave in a manner that will lead us to defeating this virus. A lot of costly mistakes have been committed in the past and are being repeated. These are mistakes that lead to death of over 11,363 people, including healthcare workers and other essential workers. Our prayers are with them and their families. When we need the healthcare workers the most, they answer the call and sacrifice their lives in the fight against COVID-19. Without healthcare workers, there could be no response or fight against COVID-19. Speaker, let us celebrate the departed heroes and heroines by spending these funds in a manner that will see employment of more healthcare workers to address the service pressure in our hospitals and clinics. Let us procure more beds in our hospital so that patients no longer sleep on the chairs and floors. Let us pay the community healthcare workers the salaries they deserve for the sterling work they do. And let us procure more PPEs and other necessary equipment needed to ensure safety of the healthcare workers and to improve their working conditions. This department is ignoring and avoiding fixing real challenges. It only cares about rushing to do quick fixes. Last week, I visited Ellen Blythe's clinic in Ladysmith. The local community asked me to relay their challenges to the department. The people of Ladysmith want to know how far is the process to build a new clinic in the community, which was approved long ago. While 99 million over the medium term will be spent on the home delivery of chronic medication, which will decongest the clinic and decrease waiting time for 6 patients. The people of Ladysmith want the department to know that no delivery of chronic medication is taking place in their communities and that they are tired of walking long distance to the clinic and spending the whole day in long queues in the sun and rain. The people want the department to know that there is no patient privacy in clinics in the area. This is to show that clean order does not guarantee service delivery. All these challenges are overlooked as 306 million is spent on pursuing a duplicate and late vaccine rollout program. It is clear that not a single dose of vaccine will be procured before the end of this year, as all the vaccine manufacturing companies have rejected all offers from the provincial government and opted to work directly with national government. So what is the point of continuing with a program that's clearly failed and behind schedule? The ANC demand that the Western Cape must stop with quick fixes and stop the vaccine procurement and direct the funds to sustainable and long-term solutions to improve the public health care system. It is a concern that not a single cent has been spent on the rebuilding of GF Jewelry Hospital, which was closed down by the government in 2014. Only 10 million is allocated this year, which explains the people of Mynenburg will not have a hospital until 2030. We are also concerned with cuts in the infrastructure budget, particularly for upgrades and additions. The ANC rejects this budget because it does not address the critical challenges in health, and it will make the Western Cape a COVID-19 epicenter yet again. The province needs to expand the COVID-19 testing strategy to include community screening and testing. Coronavirus continues to wreak havoc in our province, breaking families and destroying livelihood. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Van Fochen. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Tleko. Ngenangqondo.
Thank you, Speaker, and greetings to you. The reality is that Western Cape in the first and the second wave served as one of the epicenters, national. That is science, which talks to the fact that the health system in our province is not as beautiful as it may be presented here. We have done oversight work in areas such as West Coast, where we have seen the frustration of those who work in the health system and those who are affected by the poor health system that is there. The rural areas still remain not a critical phase where it is planned by this department to have them being rescued from their collapsed health system. Furthermore, the reality of the third wave is what we need to look at, that it is indeed coming, and then we need to plan accordingly. And the areas such as the Garden Route, the Central Karoo, West Coast, and Overberg need to be part and parcel of key areas that are looked at. The department has taken up a very good step in the beginning, where it implemented one of the manifesto pillars of the EFF to pilot a 24-hour service clinic in Grabo, and of which, if it can continue doing so all over in the Western Cape, that's the only solution to the current situation that we find ourselves in. The EFF cannot accept this budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tleko. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ACDP, I support vote 6. Speaker, we know with this pandemic, we were facing a decreasing budget day after day. But, Speaker, what we want to say is, under the lead Minister Mabombo, the HOD, Dr. Klute, and the department, we want to thank them, the healthcare workers, for the role they played to save lives in the Western Cape. And this, we don't know what we're facing, but they need to, every day with new vigor. And I know there's many healthcare workers that lost their lives. And with a diminishing budget, the department need to reprioritize. And really, from our side, we can only pray for these healthcare workers, pray that they do their best, and that we really motivate and encourage them. So from our side, you cannot just complain. You need to assist. How are we going to fight this pandemic?
Thank you.
If we have a third wave.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Time is up. Thank you. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Marway.
Speaker, thank you so much. I want to compliment this department. I think they did a sterling job under trying circumstances. They've got a home delivery service for chronic medication. They're focusing on diabetes now because this is the most vulnerable section of our community for COVID. And they've got a clean audit for 2 consecutive years. What more can we expect of them? If national government want to help the rural areas, give us the money, stop cutting our budgets. Stop cutting the budget for the Western Cape. Then you will see we will even do better than what we're doing now. I'm just concerned, and I want them to tell me whether they are testing people for diabetics now, And what are they going to do about the wage agreement fight between the unions and the state? How far is that settlement gone now, or are we in for strikes, or are we in for big disturbances in the health sector? But for the rest, thank you for a great job done.
Thank you, meneer. Honourable members, I now recognize Honourable Brenkes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, much efforts have been made to improve the quality of healthcare in the Western Cape since 1994. However, Speaker, there remain many challenges which the public face when visiting healthcare centres in the Western Cape. One of the major problems attributing to the challenges include a shortage of medical staff, poor hygiene and infection control measures, shortage of medication and equipment, poor record keeping, long lines which elderly people of 80 years old have to stand in early in the morning. Also of great concern is the safety and security of our healthcare workers who are exposed to gang fights in and around these institutions. These include paramedics who are exposed to great dangers on the while performing their duties. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Brenkes. Honourable members, I now recognize the Chairperson of the Standing Committee for Health, Honourable Philander.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, Premier, Cabinet members, and residents of the Western Cape. A responsible budget should reflect hope, resilience, and embody that the key role of government is to plan accordingly and as mandated in its responsibility as custodians of taxpayers' money. The building of a capable state with zero tolerance for corruption and looting. A people-centered budget, one in which the true reflection of resources available would be put to use to the immediate needs of the citizens, as seen here in the Western Cape. Speaker, 2.17 billion has been allocated to a war chest to defeat COVID-19. Speaker, for the immediate threat to society, our lives and livelihoods, and a looming third wave with intensities unknown to all of us. Nothing less is expected of a caring government to make sure that it is prepared to face any such onslaught during this pandemic. We welcome the almost 326 million rand for the rollout of vaccinations, which will be spent on rolling out up to 5.1 million vaccinations in the Western Cape under the capable governance of the Provincial Department of Health. We further support the allocated 75 million for the procurement of vaccines, which may be spent on procuring up to 500,000 single shots vaccines for the Western Cape, in which we showcase the level of seriousness in ending the pandemic, first and foremostly in the interest of residents who have sacrificed a year of their lives. This budget allocation speaks to the competency of health between provincial and national governments. It further demonstrates the ethical obligation this government must maintain in order to uphold priority number one, which is saving lives. Speaker, we welcome an allocated 20 million rand for communication on vaccines, which will be spent on communicating the benefits of being vaccinated in the Western Cape. This remains a crucial project given the proliferation of misinformation concerning vaccines and COVID-19. We must note with regret that there continue to be delays and a lag in provision of vaccine procurement plans from national government. Both the National Minister of Health and the President have indicated that the country will not be reaching our population immunity target as previously promised. Even with the news reports over the weekend of additional vaccine tranches to arrive and the ambitious target of 200,000 jabs per day, the reality is that without intervention or provincial support, residents can only expect any semblance of a new normal next year at the earlier. And that, Speaker, would not be without any glitches. Speaker, I thus present foresight from the DA administration in stark contrast to delayed haphazard efforts from our central authority. I wish to articulate and highlight that the Western Cape government is complementing the 1.08 billion from national government with 1.09 billion from own funds to fight this pandemic. And in addition to this, we welcome the allocated 832 million to respond to inevitable subsequent waves of COVID, which will be spent on inter alia rapidly expanding testing, providing PPE equipment through you, Speaker, to Member Van Vogel, and on ensuring sufficient supply of oxygen and critical care capacity in the Western Cape. This means that the Western Cape government has planned and budgeted to procure vaccines, to roll out vaccines, and to respond to additional costs arising from the fight against COVID-19 in the Western Cape. Speaker, from an oversight perspective, it is evident that we have a comprehensive budget backed up by a plan that is based on data, that takes every possible step to fight for a more secure future for this province. Honourable Speaker, residents of the Western Cape are offered hope. Hope through the provincial procurement process, confidence through holistic and reliable communication, care in a world-class managed system, and security in this government's readiness to fight a third wave and escalate rollout vaccination services as we await more vaccines. Through you, Speaker, to Minister Mania, I concur that in the Western Cape, when it comes down to the virus versus saving lives will win because the Western Cape government has planned and the actual money is there due to years of prudent financial management and availability of reserves at Provincial Treasury. As I conclude, I wish to rectify some misleading and deliberate inaccuracies from the opposition. Speaker, the reality we face in South Africa is that healthcare and frontline workers were promised vaccines by the end of January this year. They were then asked to hold on a bit until a week later, only to hear that the promised vaccine would expire before it could even be utilized, and that it would be ineffective to the dominant COVID-19 variant on our shores or the severe COVID-19 cases. Speaker, I thus fail to comprehend why the ANC in this legislature is in actual fact complaining, because the dear Western Cape government has the planning and the fiscal ability to plan ahead for the well-being of residents in this province. It would not be necessary for provincial government to lean in had national government taken our vaccine procurement strategy seriously. In fact, Speaker, the Deputy President stated that it would centralize procurement to prevent opportunities for corruption as experienced through the PPE process countrywide, ironically of which their own cadres are being investigated. However, we are yet to recover the cost lost of years of corruption, which has left our country in terrible financial standing at the cost of basic service delivery. I need not discuss the shocking revelation of greed and corruption through the Zondo Commission. But to put in perspective, this country remains in the first half of Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index and has remained static over the last 10 years. This is despite promise after promise to turn the tide of corruption by the ANC and by admission by the ANC of a 22 billion rand lost in the health sector due to corruption. And yet, Speaker, the leader of the opposition in this House has the audacity to defend this by talking of alleged reform in his party and supposed, quote, renewal. The fact remains, there is no renewal, and any semblance of such does not recover the billions already lost. Speaker, corruption means no houses. It means ongoing delays in social grants for the vulnerable. It means learners without placement in schools. And it means residents fearing for their lives as we are unable to fund our frontline departments due to the crisis from a national level. And as I mentioned, how COVID-19 also came and wiped a third of our economic base during 2020. Speaker, there is no greater need than now for a Western Cape 2021-22 budget of hope, in the interest of a responsive, accountable, competent, honorable, innovative, and caring governance in this Western Cape. Speaker, I therefore support vote 6. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Philander. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Mbombo.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, members, for your input. Without wasting time, quickly from Member Van Vogel, creating binaries between private and public, creating binaries using the race card, it's really unfortunate. Just making an example, especially when it is not even substantiated. For example, part of the EMS that you were saying that we're giving is a cash cow for the white and all for the private. Do you know Zamabunzi, who's from Kailicha, who owns a 40 MB Medics, EMS, who has been transferring the patients between Kailicha and Mitchell's Plain, part of the private. So before you cast aspersions, you need to find out exactly what is happening. Secondly, do you know that as part of the universal health coverage, or AKA what you call the NHI, it will never happen until you have to partner with a private. So when you actually having all of this engagement and working all together with a province as a steward, you are actually preparing for the whole country, for us using the Western Cape as a platform and also as a lab. So it doesn't go like that. I think probably because when I heard a member, Van Vogel, it was about like he's talking about the Eastern Cape or the Gauteng, where even their budget has to go to litigation because of the whole issue of that being sued. First wave, yes, so Western Cape was epicenter. Second wave, it was the Eastern Cape. Most of the deaths, excess deaths, because they don't actually audit deaths and don't report deaths properly in other provinces, except us. Actually, the most deaths are in the Eastern Cape and the KZN. If you look of the deaths, excess deaths that are coming from Gauteng, which they are not reporting them because they are outside the health system. So the third wave, we don't know which it's going to be, but we don't want to create again binaries between the provinces, which one has had the first wave, the second wave, taking note that Northern Cape is still struggling. All other provinces, their cases have plateaued. In the Northern Cape, although they might not be big cases, it hasn't plateaued. So you must avoid to creating that binaries because people move anywhere. The virus can happen to everyone. Thank you, Member Christians, and also thank you to all other members for supporting the budget. Thank you to the chairperson also for reiterating some of what we already said. Lastly, Speaker, we're approaching the Easter holidays. We urge people to socialize safely, keep it small, keep it short, keep the distance, you mask up, avoid crowded places, don't share your airspace, avoid poor ventilated places and confined environments. Keep a distance, 1.5 meter distance. Please use alcohol responsible. And for those who are selling alcohol, please, you need to also to be responsible in regard to the distribution, because at the end, health will have to absorb everything. Thank you, Speaker. I hereby table the budget for the Department of Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and to the honorable members who participated in this vote. That concludes the vote. Honorable members, I see the Honorable Minister is ready in the House, Minister of Agriculture, but at this point I wish to request the Secretary to read the third order.
Vote 11, Agriculture, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Pochenpoel. Honorable members, I now recognize the Minister of Health, the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Ivan Meyer. I recognize you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier and Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable members of the Cabinet, Honorable leaders of the official opposition, members of the provincial legislatures, special guests, the media, members of the public. Honorable Speaker, when Premier Alan Winde delivered his State of the Province address, he inspired the citizens with a message of hope. He gave them the undertaking that the Western Cape government will lead from the front. Today, Speaker, I have the honor of tabling a budget that inspires hope and confidence and that leads from the front in terms of economic recovery in the Western Cape. Honorable Speaker, I am privileged to be part of a sector that has and continues to bring hope to South Africa. When COVID-19 and the hard lockdown hits us, agriculture and the health sector, of course, took steps to ensure the safety of the agri-workers in the Western Cape. It did so by making personal protective equipment available to agri-workers across the province. Agriculture also emerged and embraced the call to ensure that food security was not compromised. Honorable Speaker, the sector was leading from the front. Speaker, in 2020, South Africa's economy took a pounding. There was, however, one sector that stood out, and that is agriculture. While the different sectors of the economy had negative economic growth during 2020, during the first and second quarter, the agricultural sector was the only sector that had positive economic growth in South Africa. And by doing so, Honorable Speaker, the sector inspired confidence in its ability to lead the Western Cape economic recovery. Behind this message, Honorable Speaker, lies the hard work, unwavering commitment, tenacity and resilience of agri-workers, farmers, producers, commodity organizations and exporters. To all of them from this government and this parliament, a big thank you on behalf of the people of the Western Cape. Honorable Speaker, the strength of the Western Cape agricultural sector lies in the fact that the combined contribution of agriculture and agro-processing in 2019 was 48.9 billion rand. In the last 10 years, the average annual real growth rate was at 4.3% in food processing gross value add. Hope, Speaker, is real in agriculture. The agricultural sector created 22,000 jobs in 2019, and the food and beverages and tobacco sector added another 12,000 jobs, a combined total of 34,000 jobs added for that year. While these figures tell us is that hope is real in agriculture, Honorable Speaker, the Western Cape agricultural sector is dominated by horticultural sector, which accounts for 47% of the province's gross farm income. Livestock farming accounts for 37% and field crops 16%. The Cape Winelands, Honorable Speaker, account for 41% of gross farm income in the Western Cape, of which 60% comes from the horticultural production. The Overberg and the West Coast districts have also horticulture as the main farm activity and accounts for 46 and 43% respectively. They together account for a further 37 of the province's gross farm income. Speaker, the Western Cape, and particularly the Cape Winelands, is the biggest district by volume in agricultural output in South Africa. Table grapes was the biggest agricultural export from the Western Cape in 2019. Honorable Speaker, oranges exports have made a strong comeback with an export breaking season of 146 million cartons exported in 2020. Blueberry, Honourable Speaker, exports increased in real terms by 39% in 2019 and 29% in 2020. Honourable Speaker, this is a message of hope. This is indeed a budget of hope. The department has continued to deliver its services during the COVID-19 pandemic, quite often with the sacrifice of lives of officials, of farmers and agri-workers. During this period, Honourable Speaker, we lost the lives of farmers, agri-workers and even my own staff in the Department of Agriculture. But as part of our COVID-19 response, the department provided advice and guidance through written innovations, ministerial letters, cabinet submissions, technical and economic research. The department also monitored developments and constraints in the food value chain. We've regularly updated the frequently asked questions, developed also together with my colleague, the Minister of Transport and Public Works, a protocol for agri-workers and also generated regular hotspot reports. 1,300 applicants have benefited also from the wine tourism workers support stipend. As part of the process of establishing Lucerne on 48 plots at Ebenezer, irrigation water has been connected to the bulk water system at the first 8 plots. Honourable Speaker, actual planting will begin next month in April for this planting season. Hope is real in agriculture in Ebenezer in the rural areas of the Western Cape. Honourable Speaker, structured training and education is also one of my key priorities, and we must continue and increase opportunities for youth, women and disabled to secure sustainability for the agricultural sector. The college offers formal training programs at the higher education training level, consisting of the Bachelor of Agriculture degree and a 3-year diploma in agriculture. The college also provides learnership programs and short skills courses. 167 students graduated from these programs at the end of 2020 academic year, the most difficult year in the history. To date, 1,799 agricultural beneficiaries have benefited from skills training. Honourable Speaker, in collaboration with the Stellenbosch University, the department expanded the Moodle electronic digital platform to use the diploma and learnership students, allowing them for a comprehensive blended learning approach across all our training offerings. It will be further developed to align our teaching and learning with the 4th industrial revolution and opportunities. The college is in the process of ensuring that the programs with the agricultural skills development programs align with the new Quality Council for Trade and Occupation Systems and Processes. Honourable Speaker, during 2020, students attended contactless classes on a rotational basis on the applicable lockdown regulations. Despite COVID-19, the Elsenburg Agricultural College completed the entire academic year in 2020. This was mainly through the Moodle platform and the commitment from our academic staff at the Elsenburg Agricultural Training Institute. We did not, Honourable Speaker, allow COVID-19 to deprive us the hope education provides us. Speaker, today I'm pleased to announce that the Elsenburg Agricultural Training Institute will continue to offer both the formal and the non-formal training programs. Training includes the B.Agric degree, the 3-year diploma agriculture, a certificate in horse mastership, a learnership to at least 550 students, and skills courses to 1,500 participants. Human capital development programs, including internships, bursary programs, scholarship programs, and the Young Professional Persons program are implemented to enhance sector skills development. The future, Honourable Speaker, of the Elsenburg Agricultural Training Institute remains currently under threat and the future is unclear. I have briefed the Western Cape Cabinet recently about the risk, and I will shortly make an announcement in this regard. Honourable Speaker, the research is very important in agriculture. Agriculture is a science, and a science needs research. And so part of the research for smallholder producers and the contribution of the Western Cape output is relatively small. The animals used for production are from many and varied breeds, including dairy cattle. As a sterling example of collaboration between our farmers and their needs, the department introduced many years ago a bull project which empowers our smallholder beef cattle. Farmers are annually provided with bulls of superior genetics to improve their livestock quality. Typically, stud bulls are very expensive and therefore difficult for these farmers to come by. This project addresses that particular need. Honorable Speaker, this project started in 2016. To date, 41 bulls have been distributed to 26 smallholder farmers in the Overberg, Gardenroute, and West Coast districts. The bulls recipients pay a nominal fee of 100 Rand per year for 3 years that the bull is on their farms. Last year, I handed over 8 bulls to farmers from Genadenal, the place of hope. The department hosted a WOW Day during November 2020 to highlight the latest innovations and technologies that the department has developed for the Western Cape agricultural sector. And this happened during the period of COVID. We are resilient. 14 innovations and technologies were presented, showcasing novel approaches to improve service delivery. The presentations were part of the drive to embed the fourth industrial revolution technologies within the department's service delivery agenda. These innovations, Honourable Speaker, prove that hope in agriculture is real. It is happening. Farmer support and development, a very important strategic priority in this government and this department. Speaker, our strategic intent is to increase the efficiency of farming businesses through diversification, partnership, and more effective production systems, ultimately leading to an increase in the standard of living. The program implemented 106 agriculture projects, both smallholder and commercial, for 2020 and 21, to the amount of 101 million rand, and in doing so facilitated the creation of 325 permanent and 5,674 seasonal jobs. Furthermore, Honourable Speaker, the program agriculture, producer support and development through the extension and advisory services has conducted 4,015 on-farm sites visits to farmers during the 2021 financial year. This is an extraordinary number of visits given the fact of COVID-19. These are important engagements to give strategic and operational advice during the farmers, to the farmers. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, a record of 5,400 household gardens were established across the province. Our one home, one garden policy supported household food production, thereby securing citizens' dignity. This project is bringing hope to communities across the Western Cape. Speaker, I would like to encourage citizens of this province to start household gardens to produce fresh, nutritious food for the household. We will continue to implement a one home, one garden policy in impoverished communities across the province. An amount of 11.516 million is ring-fenced, earmarked for household and community gardens. The strong partnership with municipalities, the community-based organizations, the faith-based organization will strengthen our opportunities so that more people can benefit from this. We encourage communities to start harvesting rainwater for food gardens and thus reduce the dependence on municipal water. Honourable Speaker, connecting with the miraculous world of plants give us an indescribable boost to personal and mental health and overall well-being. I was deeply encouraged, Honourable Speaker, when I visited the psychiatric hospital at Lentegeur, seeing how the vegetable garden is assisting the psychiatric patients with their physical and mental well-being. Soon after Natasha Johannes was diagnosed with cancer, she began the Garden of Hope on what used to be a dumping site in Mitchell's Plain. I am pleased that Honourable Member Ricardo Mackenzie, and the Premier joined me during a visit to Natasha Johannes to the Garden of Hope in Mitchell's Plain. With her passion for agriculture and a passion for plants and a passion for vegetables, she, together with her husband and the local community, showed that what is possible when there is passion, where there is dedication, and where there is leadership. It is possible to make a difference in the communities. It is possible to plant the seeds of hope in your life, as Natasha Johannes and her husband demonstrated to us during our visit at the Garden of Hope in Mitchell's Plain. Speaker, today announced that the Western Cape Department of Agriculture will implement a further 1,800 household gardens in impoverished communities across this province. Agriculture is delivering on its message of hope. Today, I further announce that the department will continue to support our smallholder and commercial farmers by implementing 105 agricultural projects to the amount of 104 million rand and facilitating the creation of 466 permanent and 1,097 seasonal jobs. All these will be supported through partnerships with a commodity approach, which remains our strategy for farmer support. The partnership and collaboration with our community organizations has proven to be the driving force within this province. Hence, the positive outcomes of the land reform success here in the Western Cape. Speaker, as highlighted by the recent case of farmer Ivan Kluter on the farm Colenso in Darling, the national government seems to be determined to destabilize the agricultural sector, not only here in the Western Cape, but all over South Africa. Land appropriation, a national government's responsibility, and this land appropriation without compensation and improper conduct of officials in the allocation of state-owned farms poses a huge risk to the agricultural economy, but also to the future of South Africa. The Ivan Kluter case further portrays the national government as being cruel and lacking empathy in dealing with the real issues that affects the lives and livelihoods. The national government must assure South Africa that land reform is not going to be used to benefit politicians and their friends. It is unfair, it is unjust to do so at the expense of hardworking and deserving land reform applicants. The bottom line is the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform must not repeat Ivan Kluter's treatment of farmers again in this province. Replacing productive farmers with politically linked individuals places South Africa's food security at the major risk. Agriculture is an important sector of the economy of South Africa, and we cannot allow the state capture of farmland to continue. Rural development and safety, another critical priority here in the Western Cape. We have facilitated the coordination of rural development initiatives in 8 regions of the Western Cape, and it resulted in 52 structured engagements through the regional coordinating committees. Honourable Speaker, the department has also facilitated 7 rural youth interventions across the district to address the rural youth unemployment. The interventions provided life skills training to the youth to realize their potential. The interventions focus on assisting rural youth on job readiness, entrepreneurship, internships, and bursary opportunities. Honourable Speaker, the Technical Rural Safety Committee and the Interministerial Committee had various engagements during the last year with the agricultural sector, including with my colleague, the Minister, Albert Fritz of the Department of Community Safety, as well as the South African Police Service. Speaker, today, I announced that the Western Cape Department of Agriculture has established a rural safety desk. I want to thank my colleague, the Minister of Community Safety, Minister Albert Fritz, for the support of his department with the establishment of the Rural Safety Desk, the first desk in South Africa, to take rural safety forward. The desk provides a platform for farmers, agri-workers, and agricultural stakeholders to log inquiries on the rural safety issues. We have also developed, Honourable Speaker, a rural safety monitoring dashboard The aim is to capture and record all rural crime reported to the department, provide spatial data on crime incidences in rural areas, and follow it up and referral to the relevant mandated authorities. This initiative supports the ministerial focus on rural safety. Citizens can access the Rural Safety Desk through an email at ruralsafety@elsenburg.com and the contact number 021-808-5421. Honorable Speaker, market access is very important here, and I have set a target to increase market access for the agricultural products here in the Western Cape over the next 5 years for 5%. During 2020 financial year, my department augmented its support to the wine industry, especially for market development activities. More than 4 million rand went into various activities in the wine industry, including export promotion, domestic access support, and the ethical trade. The department spent 11 million rand on market access related activities across multiple countries to increase agricultural product exports from the Western Cape. It is evident from the sector's export performance at 2020, it was a good year for agricultural export despite COVID-19 pandemic, except for a few commodities. Further good news was that the value of our wine exports increased by 7.7% to 9.1 billion rand in 2020. Honorable Speaker, the packaged wine export grew by 8.3%. Bulk wine has also been seeing positive trading, with value increasing by 5% to 1.9 billion. Wine export increased in developed and traditional markets in the United States, the European Union, and in Canada. Honorable Speaker, we now know with the Africa Free Trade Agreement, we are now also planning to increase our African market footprint, and the department has now added Kenya in East Africa to markets such as Uganda, Ghana, and Angola. In 2020, the government continued with its ethical trade initiatives in partnerships with the Wine Industry Ethical Trade and with the Sustainable Initiative of South Africa, also known as CISA. Speaker, over the next past weeks, Western Cape table grape producers have been harvesting table grapes. These have been marketed to China wholesale and retail market under the South African Table Grape Industry China Market Development Campaign. We have contributed to this particular strategy. The campaign is a strategic partnership between the table grape industry and the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, and it aims to increase market access for table grape producers. Hope, Honourable Speaker, is real in agriculture. Honourable Speaker, the strategic intent is also to enhance the agri-processing value in this province from 17.4 billion rand in 2018 to 19.2 billion in 2024, the end of this term of office. The department has committed to fund 2 PhD students for 3 years to research halal studies to develop this industry's capacity. The opportunity exists in the halal market are worth more than $3 trillion globally. The research will directly benefit agro-processing, which is one of the strategic focuses of this department. Agro-processing is a strategic priority. It is vital for job creation, and 46% of people work or employed in the food and beverage and tobacco segment alone are women, while 48% are youth. It is the only sector that has been increasing jobs for the past 10 years. Through fostering new relations with various partners, the departments aim to take agri-processing to the next level. Speaker, today I announced that I will be launching the agro-processing on wheels project later this year. This initiative will expose rural communities to agri-processing opportunities, which are jobs and sustainable food security. Hope is real in agriculture, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, as you are aware, the Western Cape Department of Agriculture recently reported the outbreak of African swine fever diagnosed in properties in Mfuleni here in the Western Cape. As prescribed by the Animals Disease Act, the Provincial Veterinary Services immediately activated a contingency plan and initiated measures directed towards arresting and controlling the spread of the infection. The South African Pork Producers Organization and my HOD have met with them, and the Cape of Good Hope Society for the Prevention of Cruel Animals, the SPCA, continues to work closely with the department in communicating and managing the effective control of this disease. We also need to know that this disease is not transferable from animals to human beings. Affected farmers were engaged and informed of facts concerning the disease. Also, they were advised on the reasons for the interventions instituted. The Western Cape Department of Agriculture and officials are assisting with the implementation of biosecurity measures and the distribution of disinfectants and other remedies to farmers. In line with good international practices for disease control, 240 animals were slaughtered with the industry role players' assistance. Culled animals were safely removed and disposed of to ensure that no further spread and environmental contamination occurs here in the Western Cape. Speaker, the pig industry in the Western Cape is the second largest producer in South Africa, with production growing at an average annual rate of 3.7% over the last 10 years. The Western Cape contributes 21% of the total national herd of 3.3 million pigs, making it an important contributor for growth and jobs and very central to the economic recovery plan of the Western Cape. This department also valued this report of SAPO has shown, and we remain encouraged by the willingness to help. Speaker, we encourage all farmers to adhere to the rules in terms of the quarantine measures to ensure no movement of animals in the area and to avoid disease flare-ups and other risks in the area. The department would like to thank the farmers for their ongoing support. We encourage them to remain vigilant, maintain heightened biosecurity measures, and continue monitoring all affected areas to stop the spread of the swine flu in the Western Cape. Speaker, today I want to announce that the veterinary laboratory was audited by the South African National Accredited System, SANAS, in November last year, and it was once again granted unconditional accreditation and thereby retained its accreditation status for 10 consecutive years. Certainly a history in South Africa, certainly a case of hope in action. Speaker, today I want to announce that the Western Cape will be commissioning a chemical residue testing facility housed in our provincial veterinary laboratory. Honourable Speaker, this will bring services faster to our clients. This service will offer real hope to our farmers. Climate change, this lead the agricultural sector to become low carbon, climate change resilient sector by advocating climate smart production. The department supports irrigation agriculture with the Fruit Look project, which provides 9 water use and crop data parameters via a Fruit Look web portal. Disaster management. At the beginning of 2020-21, the department provided 10 million rand of fodder support to 1,736 farmers situated in critically and extremely dry areas. Honourable Speaker, I have paid visits to various areas. I've undertaken a drought tour. It is heartbreaking to see what is happening in these areas. And I'm thankful that this government, under the leadership of the Premier and the Minister of Finance, have allocated additional 25 million rand allocation to 1,174 farmers in fodder vouchers. Many farmers indicated that without the support of government, many would have had to close their farming businesses. The drought affected not only farmers, but also the entire farming community. The farming community includes the whole value chain of workers and their families. Honourable Speaker, we will promote also a healthy ecosystem through strategically focusing on the ecological infrastructure critical areas. Sustainable resource use management has identified several ecological infrastructure which could assist the farmers in both the short and long term. Ecological infrastructure projects promote naturally functioning ecosystems that deliver valuable services to people such as freshwater, climate regulation, soil formation, and disaster risk reduction. These projects, Honourable Speaker, include implementing fencing projects, river stabilization structures, clearing of alien vegetation, the rehabilitation of agricultural land damaged or destroyed by drought and fire, also upgrading and maintenance of canal systems through stakeholder engagements. The Sustainable Resource Use and Management Program has identified the design and installation of water pipes critical to mitigate the future threat of water scarcity. This is very important because these projects will create 1,000 green jobs and 15,000 of hectare agricultural land will be rehabilitated. Speaker, last week I had the privilege to visit the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's alien clearing project at Zonquasdrift, located downstream of the Berg River in the Drakensberg municipality, Cape Winelands. This project is part of our interventions in building climate change resilience. Speaker, protecting, maintaining, and restoring provinces' ecological infrastructure is a critical part of the work that we are doing. Secondly, overgrown invasive alien plants in the river stream causes severe soil erosion that increase water turbidity and water quality. Thirdly, invasive alien plants outcompete indigenous vegetation. Thus, their removal will directly impact the ecological infrastructure, which contributes to a healthy, functioning ecosystem. During that visit, Honourable Speaker, I met the contractor and national land care winner as the best contractor in 2018, Linda Jansen. She employs 4 teams consisting of 52 people to remove alien vegetation along the parts of the Berg River. With the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's land care program, Linda Jansen can reverse the damage caused to our ecological infrastructure. Speaker, today I announced that during the 2021-22 financial year, a total of 7.8 million rand will also be allocated for the erection of fences. Honourable Speaker, the preservation and development of agricultural land is currently before Parliament for approval. If approved, the Subdivision of Agricultural Land Act number 70 of 1970 will be repealed. This development will significantly impact on provinces as certain decision-making functions will be delegated to province. Delegating powers to provinces is what Premier Windy referred to during his State of the Province address. Speaker, we must facilitate an increase in agricultural production in sustainable and smart agriculture. Speaker, today I announced that the Western Cape Department of Agriculture will implement the Smart Agriculture Management Improvement Plan in 2020. Speaker, I'm also happy to announce that I will be launching 3 climate change booklets transcribed and translated into Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa. The booklets emanate from the award-winning, well-known first-ever radio series on climate change, Die Kwiksteeg. The radio series received the 2020 Ecologic Gold Award, the category Climate Change. The booklets will be available in hard copy and online in e-booklet form, which will be embedded in radio technology. The reader will also be able to listen to the radio broadcast while reading the e-booklet. Honourable Speaker, I'm ready to conclude. The department concluded also the 7th round of the Alternative Crops Fund. It funded 9 research projects to the value of 1.944 million. Alternative crops are climate smart, high-value crops, and high labor needs. The fund launched in 2014 has already been supported to the amount of 13.115 million. Speaker, it is now my pleasure to table the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's budget of 909.08 million for the 2021 financial and 22 financial year. It is a budget of hope and a budget that places agriculture at the forefront of economic recovery. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, honourable members. I now recognize the Honourable Maran.
Thanks, Speaker.
Honorable Maran, you may proceed, Honorable Maran.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, Premier, members of this Parliament, officials, on behalf of the Congress movement, I wish to welcome the good that is made in a number of respects, but because it is indeed a work in progress, for now we cannot support this budget vote. No doubt, our main opposition to this budget vote is that it continues to ignore the agricultural landscape of our province and the historical legacy thereof. This department and this budgets make no explicit provision for questions of race, and while there is a bias towards SMMEs, in some instances, there is a lack of recognition of SMMEs from poorer areas as well as women. What is this agricultural landscape of our province? The large majority of agricultural land, somewhat 92%, remains in the hands of white farm owners, and farm or agri-workers continue to be exploited, and the safety remains uncertain, especially in respect of physical harm and evictions. These two factors in the main cannot give rise to the stability and success of the sector. Indeed, CACIDRA has put another call, but predictably, this does not favor emerging African, colored and Indian farmers. This second output came after the MEC of Agriculture basically interferes and instructed CACIDRA to stop an advertisement that was put out to basically support African farmers during this COVID period. This was basically also saying that CACIDRA have to make sure that white farmers get their piece of the slice. Speaker, this came to black farmers. This to black farmers is a clear message that whilst the legacy of apartheid remains, they should get over it and move on. Speaker, while we thank and acknowledge the work of the MEC and the department in respect of the transport of agri-workers, the MEC's visit to the Exeter Valley and welcome the idea of an executive statement by the MEC on agri-workers, working conditions and wages. The fact remains that agri-workers cannot be hopeful because it is DA policy that farmers must have the option to opt out of the national minimum wage and be able to pay farm workers the equivalent to an old age pension grant. No amount of criticism of the national departments will change the fact that this is DA policy. The MEC expressed the principle of the commitment of the provincial government to help all farm and agri workers and remaining committed to redress. But in the light of failing DA policy, this reminds me of the sentiments of my colleague, the Honorable Dartmoor, which he expressed on Friday. Words, words, words. At the same time, we reiterate that the security of farmers is not just a race issue, but indeed we must quickly add the security of farm workers who often feel threatened by their very employers. Again, there can be no case than the Smith case in Stellenbosch in 2019 to show the vulnerability of the farm worker. Speaker, despite the fact that travel and substance is increasing on the back of a decreased budget, the agency still finds it unacceptable that there is an increase in this budget. In the current economic climate, we should be cutting fat, such as travel and substance. Whilst 100 million may be spent on the departmental evaluation, and hence the high budget for consultants, we remain unconvinced that this service should be insourced. We are told that a 10 million emergency project, the 10 million energy project is taking place at Elsenburg to save energy over the long term, but no plan for insourcing is done on these departmental evaluations so as to cut on the cost of consultants. Could it be because of the people doing the elevations and that it is not in their interest to simply be employed by the department? The agency remains committed to working with the department and with the national government. And where needs be, the local government, especially in the Klein Karoo and Karoo, to broaden and build on the success of the sector despite the travesties of COVID-19 and the drought. The ANC remains committed to working with all stakeholders to build the sector and to ensure that it remains a success. We therefore wholly support and wish success to the 120 graduates in the broadening of the export market and especially to markets in Africa and China, specifically to that of table grapes. Without a doubt, we will support success endeavors. but we are part of the state. And the duty of the state is to ensure that those who are emerging and on the margins are brought into the mainstream of given a kickstart. We cannot support a budget because it does not support farm workers enough. We cannot support this budget because it does not have the vision of uplifting emerging African, colored and Indian farmers and setting them on the same playing fields as their white counterparts. We thank the MSC in this department for this work, but it is work in progress. Therefore, we cannot support this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maran. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Teko.
Speaker, here we're dealing with a department that has its mission as seeking to unlock the potential of agriculture and to enhance the economic and social wealth of the people of the Western Cape. That is the mission that they have. But however, the reality is the total opposite. This is one department that does not care about black people and the poor, especially the farm workers, as well as the emerging small-scale farmers. It is under this department that we have seen the higher rate of the spreading of COVID-19 through seasonal workers that were transferred to the Eastern Cape, with the reckless handling of that entire process, with the minister folding his arms and closing his eyes, saying that, Lord, hallelujah, all should be well. It is under this leadership of the minister that we see that the people are encouraged, especially the poor, to concentrate on food gardens instead of allocating them land and resources to ensure that they become at the same level with their white counterparts, as Honorable Maran has alluded. It is the fake marching for the farm killings that is not backed by any kind of scientific evidence that any white farmer or otherwise has died during the lockdown of COVID-19, of which the minister led that to the national parliament, faking that there is funding, instead of concentrating in ensuring that he moves the economic hurdles that are facing our people in the agricultural sector. As the EFF, we cannot support any vote of this kind that doesn't aim to progress the lives of our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Teko. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, in my minute, I cannot say much. So I just want to compliment the department, the minister and the department, and the initiative of the home gardens. I think that's a really a tool to help the most vulnerable. So I want to compliment the department, at least to give us hope and to help the most vulnerable. You know, the fish and the fishing rod, we're giving people fishing rods in order to catch fish. So thank you very, very much, and well done to the department and the minister. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Murray.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, thank you for your presentation. I just want to bring a few points to your attention. You know, the city of Cape Town is making billions out of water tariffs. It was headlines screaming in the Cape Times how many billions they've made out of increased water tariffs. But we are trying to tell people use water to wet your gardens. How does that make sense to you, Minister? The people don't have water to drink, and you say that they must have gardens to wet their gardens. So, well, if that is your plan, are we going to ask the city to reduce their tariffs and increase the amount of water these households get free so that they can water their gardens? Secondly, I see all the informal settlements. The Noon and on the N2 has DSTV, skottels, as hulle sê in Afrikaans, and dishes. They have TV but no water. I just want to know, where does our priorities lie? I want to ask the DA. Shouldn't these people rather have water tanks to collect rainwater than DSTV dishes? And then I want to know why the Kleinzie farm at Genadendal cannot be sold to
Your 1
Western
minute
Cape.
finished. Thank you, Honorable Murray. Your time is up, Honorable Murray.
Oh.
It was a minute, so I was very kind, but I can't do it beyond this point.
You must never stop me at full speed.
I apologize, Honorable Murray. Next time, I will try. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Brenkes.
Thank you, Speaker. Al-Jama is very disappointed to note that the minister did not include the plight of the homeless farm workers chased from their farms on which they were born, raised and worked on. The rights of the farm workers, or how the budget will assist the body future of agriculture and rural economy fair, which is established in 2013 following the sporadic protests by farm workers for a living wage and to address other grievances. Farmers must be encouraged to recognize trade unions and not to victimize farm workers from joining trade unions or political parties of their choice. Farm workers are also a driving force behind successful harvests. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Brenkes. Honorable members, I now recognize the chairperson of the Standing Committee for Agriculture, Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I rise to speak on Vote 11 Agriculture against the unique backdrop of events that requires this department to be of even greater service to the Western Cape and South Africa than ever before. And despite the increasing importance of its work, this department will have to deliver more with less. This budget is smaller than any of the preceding 3 years, being valued at 909 million. Due to the economic challenges brought about by COVID-19 and the damaging regulations of the national government, we've seen an increased emphasis on sectors and entities that can assist to grow the economy, specifically to grow employment. Fortunately, the agriculture sector and the Department of Agriculture are examples of a sector and an entity that have proved that they are able to help us achieve that goal. With 17.2% of employees in the Western Cape in agriculture, and with a strong growth in employment figures of almost 60% since 2014, it shows how important it is for us to support the further growth of this mostly rural sector. Primary agriculture in the Western Cape added 14.8 billion to our economy in 2019. And despite the numerous challenges posed by COVID-19 regulations and the limitations, production in this sector grew by 12.6% last year and exports by 11.4%. Yet, the picture is not only a rosy one. Climate change will have a notable impact on agriculture. This department is therefore focusing on research on alternate crops and the optimal use of water. We must also acknowledge the damaging effects that the drought is still having and will continue to have on large part of the Western Cape's farming sector. In addition to the drought still being prevalent in some areas of the Groot Karoo and the Matsikama districts, the veld and natural grazing in these areas will need at least 3 years of normal or above normal rainfall to recover. In other areas, such as parts of the Klein Karoo, thousands of fruit trees died because of the drought, and it will take about 5 years for newly planted young trees to come into production. These farmers are by and large left at the mercy of financial institutions for funding, as the drought alleviation interventions by the national government have mostly been designed to assist stock farmers with fodder, etc. In this respect, I want to pay tribute to fellow farmers and NGOs that have reached out to the drought-stricken farmers and that have come to the rescue of many, many rural families. With South Africa being ranked as the 30th driest country in the world, It comes as no surprise that almost all our vineyards and orchards rely heavily on irrigation. We also know that the provision of bulk water is the responsibility of the central government. In this respect, the delays with the construction work on the Clanwilliam Dam, which will increase its capacity by a factor of 2.4, is most regrettable. What is more is the unfulfilled promise by the National Minister of Water and Sanitation that her department would be providing the funding for the increase in the height of the water canal of the Brandvlei Dam, and that the Western Cape would not need to step in. Members would not be surprised to learn that this was nothing but an empty promise, which is why the province has again committed 20 million rand to this project in the upcoming financial year. In this, we see real meaning to our budget of hope and an example of the Western Cape leading from the front to fill the gaps left behind by national government. Honourable Speaker, the ostrich industry continues to play a significant role in the economic activity of the Klein Karoo. This despite the effects of the avian flu that hit the industry some 10 years ago. But there is still a ban on the export of raw ostrich meat, and there's a limited demand for processed ostrich meat. As a result, additional monetary pressures are placed on the sector, and particularly the Klein Karoo. We've also seen a sharp reduction of 40% in the volumes of wine exports over the last 6 years. This, together with a decrease in local consumption of wine and other alcoholic beverages due to COVID-19 regulations that prohibited the sale of alcohol over certain periods and on certain days, has done huge damage to our wine industry. The industry is sitting with record levels of bulk wine, causing pressure on storage facilities at a time when room is sought for the current harvest to be accommodated. A further nail in the coffin of farmers is the sharp decline in tourism. An increasing number of farms in the Western Cape have felt the need to diversify their income through the provision of tourism-related services. These range from tourist accommodation, restaurants on farms, guided sailor tours, etc. This income stream for farmers has also been dealt a serious blow by the travel restrictions imposed by national government as part of its response to COVID-19. Strict travel restrictions are still impacting negatively on international travel, and this source of income is therefore still being adversely affected. A number of farms therefore had to lay off workers in order to survive. Fortunately, our Department of Agriculture stepped in with a wine tourism support scheme, which financially assisted numerous families that would otherwise have suffered greatly. It is of significance that some of our colleagues that purport to plead for the plight of the poor have been quiet on this. Honourable Speaker, it would be irresponsible of me not to refer to the damages already done by the government's efforts to change our constitution to allow for the expropriation of assets without compensation. And Minister Meyer referred to this as well. We need economic growth. For this, we need investments. Investors, in turn, need to be assured that their investments are safe. This is done in the hope of expecting a return on their investment. We only need to look north of the Bight Bridge to witness the damages caused when assets are grabbed without law and order or compensation. Our constitution is there to protect citizens against undue influence of the state, particularly against an incapable one. The true intent and lack of skills of our national government was clearly demonstrated by the events related to the allocation of Colenso Farm to a group including so-called MK veterans, and a notice to vacate the farm that was served on Mr. Ivan Kluter. Fortunately, the DA exposed this through the efforts of our national spokesperson, Ms. Annette Stein, and at provincial level by Minister Ivan Meyer. When confronted with the facts and the results of an internal investigation, and when numerous cases of a similar nature were brought under her attention, Minister Didiza backtracked and stated that the officials in her department were lacking the necessary skills to allocate state farms in accordance with the official policies. Come on. We all know this is what happens when the administration is politicized, when officials budge under political pressures, and when those that are better connected are served first. It is plainly another example of the ANC national government looking after its cadres rather than looking after the citizens of the country it is supposed to serve. Do not, for one moment, think that investors are not scared by this. Just imagine the full agricultural potential we could, would, and should have been unblocked if we could assure investors that their investments were safe. Just imagine the thousands of jobs that could have been created as a result of a larger investment in agricultural infrastructure. Just imagine the contribution to the Western Cape's economy, and particularly the rural economy, if we saw greater agricultural activity. And just imagine the advantages to our people if the prices of food, specifically primary agricultural products, could come down due to increased productivity and competition. Despite all the hurdles that the national government is putting in the path of this sector, we still see impressive investments in agriculture by our hardworking and intrepid entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs that are often under attack from the national government and also in this house this morning. Agriculture, due to favorable weather conditions in large parts of our country, led to a growth of 13% in this sector in 2020. And we are proud of the contribution of this department's training initiatives, which are aimed at ensuring productive, well-trained and well-skilled participants. This initiative will be allocated 57 million in this budget, which is marginally smaller than the amount spent in the 2017-2018 financial year already. I lament the fact that these students don't qualify for student financial support from the NSFA scheme. But then, with the ongoing mismanagement and trouble at that institution, we may currently be better off in this regard. This department is also responsible for the administration of various grants made available by the National Department of Agriculture to support emerging farmers. Again, we see how the national government is increasingly turning its back on the poor. This is illustrated by the sharp decrease in the allocation for the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program, also known as CASP. The beneficiaries of this program are mostly defined as the hungry, as well as subsistence and household food producers. This province will receive only 117 million for the upcoming year, which is significantly smaller than the amounts allocated over the last 4 years. Another casualty of the budget cuts imposed on this province by National Treasury is CASIDRA, our agency tasked with the responsibility to support development in rural areas. CASIDRA was in the past funded in the order of 260 million, 475 million, and 207 million per annum. It has unfortunately only been allocated less than 139 million for this year. Honourable Speaker, the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning studied the budget in detail. We are convinced that the department, through the careful management of this smaller budget in comparison to that of the last few years, will continue to ably support the agricultural sector. The committee therefore expressed its majority support for the budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van der Westhuizen. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Honourable Speaker, thank you for the members who took part in the debate, but also who contributed to discussion during the Standing Committee when we tabled the budget proposals in the Standing Committee chaired by Honourable Member Andrikus van der Westhuizen. Honourable Member Pat Maran, I am also noting that the ANC is now rejecting support for farmers for agri-workers and producers. Because when you reject the budget, that's the rejection, that's the effect of what you're rejecting. Honorable Member Maran, if you have any proof and evidence of farmers abusing agri-workers or anybody, please supply me with that information. I would be very happy to follow that up, because certainly one of our key strategic priorities is well-being and dignity, and we have to protect our farm agri-workers. It is very significant sector. We have about 256,000 agri-workers, and they play a meaning role in the economy of the Western Cape. Honourable Speaker, the bulk of the budget of farmer support are for emerging and small-scale farmers, and so this government is committed to redress, and this budget confirms this, because a budget, as we've heard also through the Minister of Finance and the Honourable Member, the Leader of the Opposition, a budget is a reflection of your policies and your values. Our policies and our values are clear. We are supporting emerging farmers to become commercial farmers. And our Western Cape government has now a target of 50 emerging farmers to turn them into commercial farmers, and we're making particular progress in this regard. I want to assure the House that we are making progress, and I'm pleased to hear that the Honourable Member Maran acknowledged that it is a process making progress. Honourable Member Kleko simply does not understand land reform, because he doesn't understand that his ANC bosses are responsible for land reform in South Africa. He has absolutely no understanding of land reform, of how it works, because he certainly are singing the songs of his political bosses, the African National Congress. He is the ANC Youth League in the EFF. Honourable Member Christians from the ACDP, thank you for your input and support to this budget. I really appreciate your support. Honourable Member Marais, yes, you raised the issue of water tariffs. Agriculture must also be very water resilient, and we have seen, as you rightly pointed out, also mentioned by the Honourable Chairperson of the Standing Committee, the Western Cape, South Africa, in fact, is the 30th driest country in the world, and we need to do everything to become water resilient. Honourable Member Peter Marais, one of our programs is to also encourage vegetable gardens to use grey water, and my department also assists people with equipment, training and advice in terms of how to turn grey water also for effective use in vegetable gardens. We discourage many of these vegetable gardens to use municipal water. We also encourage all of these vegetable community gardens to rather do rainwater harvesting, precisely because of the water shortage. Honourable Member Peter Marais, you were shortcut due to the time, so I hear there are certain information that you want to pass on to me. We must not allow the time of the program to prevent that. So after this meeting, at another time, telephone call, send me an email, because certainly I gather that you have certain information that I certainly need to pick up. I also heard you speaking about Genadendal. I didn't get the full story because of the time limitations on your side from the programming authority here, but I think I'm quite happy also to engage with you about that so that we can find a solution. Honourable Member Brinkhuis, if you have certain information, I'm very happy to receive it, because I've also heard that there is something that you want me to follow up. Please pass that information on to me. I did hear Honourable Member Brinkhuis speak about agri-workers. I can assure you that 17% of the total labour force of the Western Cape are working in the agricultural sector. It is a very important part of the agricultural sector. In fact, it is significant, and we have huge numbers of people also employed, more than 200,000 also in the agri-processing sector. So this is a very important sector that we need to care. We are the only province that have a agri-worker program, that have agri-worker competition. We are the only program that in South Africa that support agri-workers. We have agri-workers prestige forum that advises us about certain things. So if you have any further suggestions, I'm happy also to engage with you on the agri-workers program. I do not want to dismiss issues that people have brought under my attention, so I'm pleased to listen to that. Honourable Member van der Westhuizen, thank you for also your role in realizing the role and the impact of agriculture in the Western Cape, and thank you for also for acknowledging the increase in agricultural production during the period under review, as well as the increase in the exports. Agricultural exports for us is significant. Honourable Speaker, you will recall at a previous time I did inform this House that during the period of 2008 and 2018, the Western Cape contributed 50% of all of South Africa's agricultural exports, and so far those are particularly markets that we want to maintain. Given the Africa Free Trade Agreement, we certainly will target the African continent, 1 billion people, a very significant market for our products. Yes, Honourable Member van der Westhuizen, thank you. The drought is real, and we are conducting currently research on farming in desert and arid areas, and we have also now appointed a world expert in climate conditions, and certainly looking forward to her contribution in agriculture. Also, thank you, Honourable Member van der Westhuizen, for your role of the CBOs and the civil society and the faith-based organization for their massive contribution in assisting farmers in drought-stricken areas, not only in the Western Cape, but in the rest of the country. Honourable Member, I enjoy working in this portfolio, and I will fight for agricultural sector, but it breaks your heart if you see how the national government fails farmers, particularly the National Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, as well as the Department of Water and Sanitation, because they are really the biggest threats to agriculture in South Africa. And because we adopted a resilience approach as a strategic intent, we will not allow the national government departments to derail our plans, and that goes for every single member of this cabinet who are struggling with our colleagues in the national, but we will continue fight for justice and fight for what is right, because resilience tells us don't stop, keep on going and make a difference. The ANC will rather protect Ace Makosule at the National Executive Committee meeting than to support black farmers in South Africa. I want to know, where was the EFF, the ANC Youth League, and its bosses, the ANC, when farmer Ivan Kluter faced eviction in the Western Cape? But I want to warn Honourable Minister Toko Dudisa not to proceed with the plans to continue to allocate another land reform farm to an MK veteran without due processes, because that is what she wrote in a report, because I will fight it again, because we are fighting for justice. Honourable Member Speaker, you will recall that Premier Winde has addressed the issue of federalism and more provincial powers during the State of the Province address. In line with his call, I want to announce today that I have mandated my department to start giving effect to this and start the process of drafting a provincial veterinary services legislation for the Western Cape. I will keep the Standing Committee and the Western Cape Parliament informed about this progress in this regard. We are putting in place the principle of federalism and subsidiarity here in the Western Cape. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Chairperson of the Standing Committee, Mr. van der Westhuizen, referred to the important role of the ostrich industry. I have 2 weeks ago visited the ostrich industry in Oudtshoorn. As you know, 77% of the total South Africa's ostrich are exported to the Netherlands. 14% of South Africa's ostriches are exported to Switzerland, and about 4% are exported to the United Arab Emirates. And I've recently met with the South African ostrich industry, as well as with the Klein Karoo Ostrich Chamber, and we are certainly engaging with two issues. One, to remove some obstacles that prevent them some further exports, and I've also currently involved with assisting them with a market access strategy to also promote the ostrich industry more broadly amongst the diplomatic community. Because some of our diplomats here in South Africa, foreign diplomats, they haven't tasted the nice taste of ostrich meat. And I know, Honourable Speaker, you like ostrich meat because it doesn't have fat. So I think this is a great product that we need to export globally, and that process and engagement between me and the ostrich industry is currently underway, and I will soon have another meeting with them about removing red tape for exports. Honourable van der Westhuizen is also correct that the national government is turning its back on black farmers with huge budget cuts through the conditional grants, as he pointed out. These cuts is a result also of taxpayers' money finding its way to the pockets of those implicated at the Zondo Commission. And those who are drinking tea at Nkandla has a lot to answer for these taxpayers' money that have been abused. Honourable Speaker, I want to thank my head of the department, Dr. Sepopetse, as well as Mr. Daryl Jacobs, the DDG, as well as our CFO, Mr. Flores, for Huishammer, for the great work they've put together in compiling this particular budget, as well as all the program managers in the Department of Agriculture. I'd also like to thank all the farm managers at the 7 world-class, well-run research farms under the capable leadership of Dr. Ilse Trautmann. When people hear about a government farm, they're always worried. When you hear about a research farm, please come and visit our well-run research farms here in the Western Cape. I'd also like to thank my own office, Mariki van Jaarsveld, Mr. Daniel Johnson, my private secretary, Samain de Vos, and all my staff in the department, but I must also thank the farmers, the agri-workers, the producers of this province. And lastly, thank you to the Standing Committee for giving their support to this budget that is here being tabled in this House. And I would like to conclude that I want to thank them for their support, and I hereby submit the budget for the Western Cape Department of Agriculture to this House. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, honourable members. The session will now be suspended. I will suspend it for a period of 45 minutes. That gives us between now and 1:45. I shall see you then. Thank you very much. The session is suspended.
Thank you.